What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And I want to speak on pay raises, right, for the WNBA. Adam Silver just recently came out and said that a deal will get done for as far as the collective bargaining and the WNBA is concerned, the deal will be done. And I kind of knew that. All right, so from one end, that the WNBA, Adam Silver is saying a deal will get done. Now, that's not saying that the WNBA players will accept whatever deal that Adam Silver comes up with. So, but I do think that the WNBA and the NBA just has so much money invested in this that they can't afford a strike. I also think that the WNBA players can't afford a strike right now, but they don't seem to be. Maybe they're not aware of the fact that they can't afford a strike, and both sides are in that same boat. And by that I mean, like, WNBA players may think that they have more leverage than what they have, but I think that if the NBA players decide to go out on strike, then what will happen is I think there will be some type of like divide and conquer, right? And they do this in the NBA, NFL, all the major sports. And what happens if they go out on strike? They will allow, like, if you want to cross the strike lines as a player, then you'll be allowed to do that. Plus, the WNBA probably will bring in, like, I remember football at one time brought in players, like they called them scabs, right? Players who probably who who didn't make the teams, but who wanted to play professionally, and that put pressure on the guys who were out on strike, right? The WNBA, they're gonna have plenty of ways to bring people and get them to cross the strike line if players decide to strike, right? And you got to remember, I think WNBA players, if they do decide to go out on strike, they'll cross that strike line very fast because they're not making a lot of money as is, right? So people, no matter how much money you make, or these athletes or actors, or a lot of people, they just live from check to check anyway. So after about a couple weeks, or from work, and a couple months or a month or so off of work, you'll have players that will be ready to cross the strike line if the WNBA, like I said, if the players decide, this is what we're going to do. But I think this was a strategic move by Adam Silver to let the public know that, look, we definitely want these players to come back, and we're going to give them some money. First of all, then we want to work on the relationship between the players and the league, right? So this is part of it is strategic, and so it might even be genuine, like I said. But they also want to keep in mind that the WNBA is, like, they have too much money to lose right now, and they have money coming down the line from potential new teams. So they don't really want to mess this up, right? If this was a few years ago, like when the league, before Caitlin Clark hit, or before the league really started growing in its popularity, they probably would allow, all right, y'all want to go on strike, we're going to allow, go ahead. We losing money anyway. But now the potential for growth is there. Everybody can see it. Then you have new investors coming in who are willing to spend money. So that's growth for them, you know. So they're not going to let the WNBA players mess this up. And let me see if I want to pull up the article, Adam Silver. All right, so here it is. The article says, Adam Silver says WNBA deal will get done, but the relationship issues with the players must be repaired, right? And so that, like I said, they're gonna make us, they're gonna work on a relationship. The stuff that Nafisa Collier exposed about Kathy Engelbert don't make the league look good. but I think it's repairable, right? Like whenever you have negotiations, it's a situation where things get said. Things get said and in the heat of negotiation, and that's all a part of the process, right? So I don't think that relationship between the NBA and the WNBA is can't not to a point where it can't be repaired, right? Even though a lot of people say that for the longest time the WNBA has been really getting over on the players and not paying them what they feel like they should have been paid or what they feel like their worth was, right? So, but the article says NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said a new collective bargaining agreement with the WNBA players will be reached, but acknowledged relationship issues that must be repaired following the circumstances of Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, right? And I think if it's really bad, the relationship is really fractured, then what will happen is maybe they'll have Kathy Engelbert step down. I don't think that the league is worried about whether the players trust Kathy Engelbert. I think the owners, it really depends on the owners. Like, do they think she can be an effective, um, is she effective at running the league and doing her job? They're not really so much concerned about the relationship. Like they said, they'll do as much as they can to repair the relationship between the players and the league. But if Kathy Engelbert can be effective at her job, then he probably won't leave. Those reached. Let me see. Those reached a high point last week when Minnesota's Nafisa Collier said the league had the worst leadership in the world, and they have threatened to overshadow the WNBA finals between the Vegas Aces and the Phoenix at the beginning that began days afterward, right? Sorry about it. I got a cold. Let me see. There's no question that the WNBA is going through pains, and it's unfortunate that it's coming just as their most important games and their finals are on right now, Silver said Monday. We've had two fascinating games so far, and we want to celebrate the games at that moment, right? And then we've got to go sit down with the players and negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement. So, and let me just speak about that too, right? The WNBA also has to get to a point where they like people are interested in the like what's going on the court, not so much as like the drama and stuff. Like the drama, it brings a lot of eyes and it brings a lot of attention, but you want to sell and you want to promote the product that's on the court. So they have to, like the players got to clean it up. The WNBA got to clean it up and put a product out there that is, that people want to see, that people want to watch, and because you can't rely on drama to sell the WNBA. You just can't do it. So you got to put a product out there that people want to see, and that's why in that speech, Nafisa Collier she brought up the word sustainable, right? And the WNBA throwing that word around sustainable, like because the WNBA has been on the uptick the last 2 or 3 years, right? And they're getting a lot of attention. People at the top of the WNBA want to make sure that level of excitement around the WNBA is sustainable. So they have to find a way to make, like I said, what's going on the court something that people want to see and make sure that people want to buy tickets or people be interested in coming to the games and stuff like that. So they have to do that. I don't think that they can sell the league successfully just on drama, like making this some type of Real Housewives type thing where it's, people throwing drinks on each other and climbing across tables to get at each other. They don't want it to be that type of atmosphere or that type of situation. So, I think there's going to be the collective bargaining is going to be something that both sides are going to have to agree on. Now, one thing I think the WNBA players have to be careful of, like when you get a raise, they're going to have to. The WNBA players are probably going to have to give something up, because you're not going to just go in there and say, "Well, give me a raise." And the WNBA going like, "Well, all right, what are you going to give us?" And so some type of control that they have, that these players have, they're going to lose some control, right? And people really don't think about that until after the deal is done. But some of the things that these players do are going to be policed more carefully. They're going to probably put rules in play where as though they can fine the girls. Like, you're going to see heavier fines. So they got to be careful about that. You know, you make more money, the fines are going to be heavier. And what the fines, with heavier fines, what that means is more control for the WNBA. So things that these young ladies do on the court and off the court are probably going to be penalized even more. And so they probably, I'm not even sure if these young ladies are even aware of that right now. Like I said, you know, you've seen that in all the major sports. You give up some of your I don't want to, you give up some of your privacy, your freedom, and your liberties and stuff like that. And so, yeah, but I do think both sides are in a position where they can't afford to strike, and they have to really be, you know, they got to be careful about, these young ladies need to be careful about what they, you know, what they agree to, like in the final say. I think they're going to get their raise. Adam Silver said they're going to get their raise, but they're going to give some stuff up too, right? And you know, so that's my take. I don't think either side can afford to strike, though. Both sides have a lot to lose. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.